We're here for another chat with the artists on Tales from the Soundcheck podcast.
Today we've got Sean Shaw, one of the guitarists from the band Green Invaders. They are a 5-piece progressive metal band from Central Connecticut. This dude absolutely rips. What's up, man? How you doing, Sean?
Pretty good. How you guys today?
Very good.
Hey, doing great, man.
Just gonna kick it off. Dan, do you have a shotgun question? I didn't think of one.
Oh, okay. Well, this will be super on the spot then.
So we got double barrel shotgun going on right now.
Yeah, that's a thing we normally do with most of our guests. Is just like a shotgun question. So, man,
I got one.
oh, you got one? Okay,
Yeah,
go
I
for it
thought
if
of
you got one. Okay.
All right. So I sent Dan a picture of a guitar. It was an acoustic guitar the other day. In the back side of it was like butt cheeks, like shiny butt cheeks. And it was the funny ass guitar, literally funny ass guitar. What's the weirdest guitar you've ever seen?
Oh wow, that's an interesting question. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is when I was growing up. I was in like 6th grade, and I used to listen to this Japanese black metal band called Malice Miser.
I remember that band.
Their instruments are very like swirly and strange, and so that always just really stuck out to me. Like these guys spent a lot of money on custom instruments, and yeah, they're just going all out.
That's crazy that you bring that up because I have not heard that name probably since like 2003.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's probably around the time.
Yeah. One of my friends, Kevin, was really into that band. He was really into rocking trip pants and stuff like that. And,
yeah, no, I didn't go that far, but I was into pretty obscure shit.
You know what
Even
band
at a
had
young age.
weird guitars? Orgy.
Oh,
Orgy.
yeah.
They had like these weird, like the headstock by the nut would connect on this weird elongated piece of just wood would connect back to the body. I specifically remember it from the Family Values 98 DVD.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah. I've been seeing some wonky guitar pictures, especially because the internet is such a precious place. So what got your inspiration to get the wheels going with the Green Invaders and, you know, other projects that you've done?
Okay, it's a pretty loaded one. So I started playing bass when I was like 14, and actually, you're gonna find this interesting. So I tried out for this band called Metis Remedy because I was friends with this kid Brett, and so that was my first real like experience with a band. I mean, that didn't work out. I ended up getting put on house arrest, so I couldn't leave and I couldn't go to practice. But it just kind of like it got the wheels turning. I started playing bass every day for hours and hours, and me and my friends, we started experimenting with a lot of different kinds of music, mostly metal, of course. But yeah, no, we had a bunch of different bands, pretty much all the same members, but like different names over the years. We ended up starting the Green Invaders in 2008, and I was the bass player originally. It was inspired by kind of like the same vein as the Black Dahlia Murder and the Red Chord around that era. We had a pretty turbulent start. Actually, we have a pretty turbulent history in general. Our original guitarist passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's what led me to actually switch to playing guitar, and so I had to learn all our songs on a guitar instead of a bass, and from there I just kind of never looked back at the bass again, other than like, you know, to write and compose and stuff.
Yeah, I think when I originally met you, you were playing bass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that was a while ago.
You're gonna find this funny. I started Metis Remedy with my guitar player Steve.
Well, that's why I wanted to mention it. I've been saving this for a while.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I
That's
started the
awesome.
band when I was still in high school. I was a senior, and Steve and I. It was just Steve and I. We didn't have a drummer, and we had met Brett. Brett had enlightened me recently with a conversation I didn't remember, but we met at a Cafe Tempo at New Britain High.
Oh no shit, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's where I went to school.
And we started making logos for it, and literally just like writing bass and guitar with Tabit drums. Like,
Oh,
perfect.
Tabit.
Yeah, through a PA
Bless
speaker.
you. Bless you for mentioning Tabit.
I know. It was good, and then we found Brett, and then we started jamming, and we only played a couple shows, as at least when we actually got the band off the ground. So that's cool. That's cool. I must have.
There was like a brief period where you left and they were looking for another bassist.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
I wonder what I was
you know,
doing. It might have been In Eyes of Ruin. It was definitely another band, In Eyes of Ruin or APH. It was one of the two.
but at the time they were writing, I remember specifically the name of the song was Maleficent.
Yep. Okay, yeah.
So to give you a time frame, it was around then.
I have the edits of the unmastered version of that song.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a cool song. Sean, we've talked about Sean a few times on the show, and or Sage.
Oh yeah, he changed his name, huh?
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah.
He's been. I mean, he's been. It's. I think he really did it like during that band. We just nobody. I don't think it stuck until a couple years later.
And what's wild is that I was also in a band with Sage.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was the vocalist. I was in a band called View Through Blind Eyes back in the day, and he did vocals for us for a while.
Small world.
Yeah,
It is.
especially the Connecticut scene, man.
Yeah, it's a tiny
Yeah,
little
really.
state. Well, that's cool. You guys rip.
Thanks, man.
It's always fun to listen to your music because I'm like, oh man, these guys know exactly what my ears want to hear. And it's really weird. Like I feel like you guys have visually, you have like the visuals of like what I would say like the faceless. It's
That's
just like it's
interesting.
my perception, but like you said, you know, Black Dahlia Murder definitely can hear that.
Yeah, 100. That's front and center.
Our early days, we sounded a lot like that kind of metalcore, like straightforward.
Yeah.
I feel like since 2008, I've constantly been exploring different avenues and trying to find what the Green Invaders sound should actually be. It wasn't until 2016 when we released our first album that was actually like established. Once I was able to hear it from start to finish, mixed and mastered, everything just kind of clicked. So from there, I started writing a lot, just constant. The Green Invaders probably have over 200 songs.
Wow.
A lot of bands have that massive dump file of songs and riffs, and
Oh yeah,
it's a really cool feeling when you hear something for the first time after doing like a whole new recording, like you said. Like you're like, oh, it clicked when you're all sitting in there listening to it, or you spend the time, you know, to listen to it yourself, and you're like, holy shit, this is the band.
Yep.
That's such a cool feeling.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Dan's definitely felt it as well.
Oh yeah.
So we did our first album with Chris Wiseman, actually, funny enough. This is before Currents or Shadow of Intent really blew up.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even have an album out at all, which is funny. I mean, since we released Collapse back in 2016, we've been constantly just quiet working on a massive project. I can't really get too into detail with it, but it's coming soon for sure.
I respect that. You got to keep it completely.
Hey man, much respect.
I even talked to the dudes beforehand, like, hey, how much can I divulge? And they're like, nothing.
No, I respect that, man. Like, keep your art close.
Yep, keep us on the edge of our seats too.
Yeah, and like when you want to come back on and like promote it, we'll do a review or a live review or something.
hell
Do
yeah.
a commentary, something like that. That'd be rad.
It'll be really fulfilling for me to finally be able to talk about this shit publicly. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's been close to my heart for a very long time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, stoked, man. That's awesome.
So I want to say around 2019, that's when we decided to learn how to do this shit ourselves. So like the recording, the mixing, like everything. We just wanted to do it all, like, and have complete control. So that's why it's taken so long. Because rather than like, you know, pay ass loads of money to someone and then potentially end up unhappy or like not a crystal clear vision that we set out to achieve, you know, we figured it's better to just handle all of it like internally. But it's been a long road, like, to get there.
Fulfilling though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you're doing everything, you know. You might have some things, you know, done like artwork done or something like that, but but you're doing everything. I think of a lot of I think a lot of bands that have had long time longevity, maybe at current different levels of success, but long time longevity are the bands that keep it real close.
Absolutely. I mean, the more you can handle on your own as a group, the better, you know?
Yeah.
I can say that from my point of view, from being a sign band before. Like even that, you lose a bit of control in some aspects. So
Oh, yeah, that's a very slippery slope.
DIY all the way, honestly.
Yep. I mean, we live in an age where you don't really need a label.
No.
It's nice, you know? You got people like doing a lot of the legwork for you and stuff. But if you're willing to sacrifice all your free time and put in like 1,000,000%, then you can do it yourself. It's
Hmm.
pretty interesting.
Without the contractual
Right.
obligation. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's
Deadlines,
scary to
all
me.
of
Like,
that shit.
you write a full album and then you go to present it to the label and they're like, nah, this shit sucks. Change
Hmm.
this and this. And like, I don't know, you know?
I had an interaction. I'm not. I won't say the label, but
Hmm.
we had an interaction in Forsaken briefly with a certain record label, and they listened to our stuff and was gonna have somebody come down and just hang out. They had a lot of notes, and I'm pretty sure Cameron at the time, being Cameron at the time, was like, "Fuck them, I'm not changing shit."
Hmm.
And it just didn't pan out. Plus, when you look at the like I said, the contractual side of it, when you look at that and you see like, oh, I gotta pay this. You're in simple terms, you're signing up for a loan.
That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're fronting you the money and you owe all of it.
Yep, and you better profit.
Right, exactly. No, yeah, there's a lot that goes into the industry that most people don't even think about.
It
It's
is
not
very
fun.
true. So, Sean, I'm curious, like, what is your process of like formulating songs, like your writing process as a band? Like, what is that like?
So I typically go into writing a song with an already established idea, and what that idea tends to dictate is the direction that the actual music will go in. There's a lot of like backstory to every song that I write
Sure.
that never really comes to the surface. It's all just kind of there for me, you know? Like I have my own head canon.
No, I get that. I get that as like from a writing standpoint for sure.
Yep. So writing process, um, for the most part, I write everything in Guitar Pro with a guitar in hand to like structure it. Actually, Guitar Pro essentially taught me everything I know about music theory from like a reverse engineer standpoint, if that makes any sense.
I love it. I use Guitar Pro as well.
Mm.
So like the time signatures, different note values, all of that stuff. It's just like it came from experimenting with it until it clicked. Also, I started doing this weird thing around the time I was 16 where everything I listened to, I would count it because I wanted to really understand time signatures and how they work and flow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
Yeah, Dave and I always have this funny thing where we bring guests on where like the last few like drums were their first instrument or the instrument they wanted to play, but my first instrument was drums, so I was always like that even as a kid.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I should have picked up drums as a kid. I wish I did. Like I fully understand how they work, and I mean I write most of the drums at least like to establish the flow of the song and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually trying to put that to physical use, nah. I have trouble with like limb separation, stuff like that.
Sure.
Music is so wild because we all can be in the same room and create this one entity with 5 or 6 dudes, and some people understand things not better or worse but different.
Right.
Like I could have a guitar player that can count the same, his hearing the same, if you're going off of measures, but you understand it differently. So music is like one of those things.
It's very subjective.
Hmm.
Even
Yeah.
though there's like established rules, it's very true. Everyone hears things differently. And so like me and my drummer, we it's interesting because we view things differently even though we view them the same, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like I know the like quarter notes, eighth notes, sixteenths, triplets, all that stuff. He knows it more based on like feel. But he's disgusting. Watching him play and like his I don't know, man. It's crazy watching him play.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I mean is I think yeah, you nailed the point I was trying to get at was the it's all different. So like he has it by feel and but you might be sitting there actually counting, in your head. He might not be counting in his head. He's using his arms and his legs
Yeah,
to
but think
count.
about that. The amalgamation of like multiple guys having different feels in ways that they feel the same song brings out this awesome performance.
Yeah.
That's what makes music like fantastic.
It's like a universal language.
Yeah.
Everyone understands it, like no matter what language you actually speak, you know?
Yeah,
It's weird.
music definitely transcends like language and all of that.
Especially live, even in a practice space. You have a nice practice space. Your drums are all mic'd up through a PA, and you're getting thumped in the chest a little bit, and you got a nice volume,
Hmm.
you know, or just playing live. Even in a practice space, you can get so into it, and
Oh, it's one of my favorite things ever.
yeah,
We don't get to practice enough, unfortunately. Not as a full group.
that's another thing too. Depending on, I've had many practices where in certain bands where like it's only just me and the drummer, and so you got a bass player and a drummer. So a lot of the songs were actually modified and written that way
Oh,
with
Yeah.
wow.
just bass and drums.
Very
Um,
early Green Invaders was a lot of me and my drummer Steve at the time, like alone, just the two of us.
yep.
Mm.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time solo with Cameron. A lot of it was, just jamming songs, but we were able to jam without the guitars. So
Right.
we were able to run through songs. We do like a whole set, just drums and bass, but you could hear it. That's going back to that other point. We both could hear the guitars. We didn't backtrack them. We just jammed it out.
Yeah. No, we did that for a while. When we released Collapse, we ended up going with backtracks because we lost a guitarist at the time, and in order to get that full sound, it's the only thing that really made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool because then it's like, wow, we have a full band even with just 3 or 4 of us, you know, and it's consistent every time with click tracks, and like everything's tied to a grid now.
Hmm.
Yeah. What's upsetting now of backtracking is a lot of bands are being accused recently of backtracking on live performances.
Oh yeah, there's tons of bands that mime their shit, dude. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I don't know how I
Yeah, I've
feel
been
about that.
seeing a bunch about like people like just not using a real kick drum live. That's like just absurdly upsetting to me.
Yeah. Even I mean, I'm not going to throw names
No,
out
no, no,
there,
no.
Nah.
That's fine.
but no, there's certain bands that I really enjoy, like from a listening perspective, and then I'm seeing them live, and I'm just like, man, what the fuck, you know? It's so unfortunate. Even like backtracking, like vocal layers and stuff.
Oh
Come on,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like there's a fine line.
There is a fine line. Like when my band was touring, we did have backing tracks, but a lot of the stuff was like ambient stuff that we couldn't
Yeah.
replicate with our instruments.
That's
Oh,
exactly what we're doing now. Is like
or
all
like
the
bass
extra guitars.
drops, like,
Yeah. Yep.
transitions, things like that, that like that I feel like that's acceptable. Or like,
Like the more
I toured with a
theatrical
band
elements.
that
Yeah.
their bass player was backtrack because they didn't want to tour with a bassist because they could never find a steady one. That's fine.
And that's fair.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, we,
I would say that that's
you know,
fair. I mean, there's ways around that too,
Yeah.
without having to do with the backtracking, but uh, you could have somebody.
you can use like an octave pedal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could
Depending on
do
what you're playing.
you could do stuff like that, or you can, have if you didn't want to tour with a bass player, depending on who they are, you could always have somebody else on that tour behind the kit or behind one of the back lines, just sitting down in a chair jamming.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
true.
I mean, there's a bunch of different avenues you could take for that kind of stuff. It's I mean, the industry, like in that sense, is very flexible. You
Yeah.
know, there's always musicians who are willing to tour and come in and fill in. And it's a
Yeah,
very big world out there.
Yeah, there's always work.
I saw I think it was last August. Um, I saw Newfound Glory's 20th anniversary tour of Sticks and Stones. They played with 4 Year Strong, but I believe Dan from 4 Year Strong, he was up on stage with Newfound Glory as a second guitar player to support a little bit because
That's
one of
cool.
their guitar players had just gotten through cancer treatment or something like that. So
Oh wow.
he wasn't as strong, so they had him up there, which that's gotta be fucking awesome to probably, it's Newfound Glory, and you like, hey, you want to play guitar with us? You're not only
I
on
know,
their
right?
tour, you're playing on stage with them. That's pretty.
Maximum exposure right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's there are bands though that I see that I'm just like, they're absolutely seamless from the second they walk on stage to the second they get off, and that craft can be achieved without doing any fakery. You have, like you said, like we had like an SPDS pad behind the drum kit with a laptop, and
Yeah.
we'd have the intro sample to the set. There's the ambient noises and weird stuff between songs,
Yep.
bass drops, different noises. We did a lot of stuff theatrically where I used a phaser and a bass chorus pedal,
Oh sweet.
and
Yes.
I wouldn't have them on the floor. I'd have them, they were velcroed to the side of my rack, and I would just pound them with my fist during a song. Something you could definitely achieve now fairly easier if you just making a sample, but it was something we had to replicate live at the time.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's pretty
I mean,
cool.
it's wild how much the technology and gear has changed over the last decade, even.
Hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of gear, we've talked about gear, but we don't talk about it too much. How do you feel like solid state tube amps? Because I feel like stuff has changed so much, and the sound and quality of certain things have changed so much that it's almost now just, it was always kind of personal preference, but now it's absolute personal preference because things can be, you know, replicated. Like with my bass rig that I currently have that I've had for 12, 13 years, I do preamp power amp setup for bass, which is it's good. I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday where bass and guitar kind of have guitar has bass players are going to get mad at me, but guitar technology has gone leaps and bounds from, if you had just like a tube amp with some pedals, you'd sound amazing at the time, and you still do. But technology now with guitars has gotten ridiculous. But bass
Yeah.
has kind of stayed the same. If I like my rig still is relevant and sounds good, there's still some technology.
I've experimented with both over the years, but for the most part, I've always leaned towards solid state and digital just because I like to use a lot of different effects. And my rigs have always kind of just had those built into them rather than needing 100 different pedals. I mean, tube amps are cool. I don't know how to like actually change the tubes and bias the amp and all that shit. So
It almost feels like it's a like vinyl and MP3s at this point
it's a good
now.
way to
Like
put it.
tube
Yeah, it's
amps.
leaps and bounds.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean they're
in this
amazing.
current day and age, I would say digital,
Yeah,
solid state all the way.
Yeah.
You can do pretty much anything, like you said.
especially with live performance. I mean, watching bands years and years ago, they all sounded good, but now every band you see, whether they're just starting touring and they're just getting big on the scene, to a band that could fill arenas, they're all perfect nowadays. And you might be able to tell because you're a musician if somebody's screwed up or something's going on, or the fakery, because I've seen quite a few times. I'm not going to name the band, but that microphone is in the crowd, but I still hear him singing. You know,
I mean that runs so rampant in music performance in general. I mean, look at like, you know, see, I don't really watch TV and shit. But I mean, you have like Rihanna perform the Super Bowl, right?
yeah,
And you watch her and she's not really singing any of that shit, really.
No,
no, no, probably not.
Like it's all pre-recorded.
that's been a thing forever.
Yeah, yeah,
But the thing about like rock and metal is it's always kind of thrived on the actual musician like aspect of it, you
Yeah.
know. And so, let's say you pay a shit ton of money to go see a band, I don't know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers or something, right? And then you realize they're not really playing. It's like you're kind of getting cheated. You want to see a band actually perform their stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's weird. But that's the thing though, is so many bands are striving for that like perfectionist mentality that it's almost, well, no, it's definitely just easier to have like pre-recorded guitars and just play along, you know.
I get that, but like at the same time, you're sacrificing what so many great bands did like organically back in the day. Like imagine going to see Led Zeppelin back in the day. Like they had some lights and that was fucking it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point I'm trying to make.
They had to just play the fuck out of those songs, and there was just so much natural experimentation when they would play a song, depending on when you saw them. Like, yeah, man, like there's definitely something to be said about like the human factor in things. So like the technology is like a blessing and a curse.
But the boundaries with music itself have been pushed so far to the
Yes.
limits that like really technical stuff, I don't care how good you are at guitar, it's like you can't play that shit perfect, you know?
No.
No.
You got to dedicate hours upon hours to like get really tight.
Like not everybody's Jason Richardson.
Right. Even him, I can guarantee even someone like him, like he still fucks up, you know?
Oh,
He's just practicing
yeah.
so much that he's past that point when you see him,
Mhm.
you know?
It doesn't happen often. There's some of the shows that I go to and the bands that I see, they're playing, you know. And
Yeah.
if you told me they weren't, I would have a really hard time believing you, because you kind of take the control factor out of the performance in that aspect. Because if you're just pretending strumming along and you're not plugged in, and you just got a cable running to a off wireless pack.
Or a really quiet one anyway, you know?
Yeah,
So it's just buried in the mix.
yeah. It takes like the control, because you have, how do I explain it? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you're playing a song, say it's on a record, and you have a certain track the way it goes, but there might be a squeal on it, but it doesn't get accentuated like you would on stage. You can't hold it. You're holding it out longer. You have more ring outs and
Mhm.
different things like that. If you have that pre-recorded, you have to like physically choreograph that. I feel like that's harder
I
to.
know at that point you might as well just play the shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's harder to.
Because eagle eye, like observers, they're gonna notice that, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're up close. I mean, if you're in like a giant arena, you're not going to notice that somebody's not playing the third string 12th fret, you know, unless, you might. Cell phones are pretty good. So, but yeah, I would be pretty bummed if you found out that like the Chili Peppers didn't play their songs,
Yeah.
after so many years. It's just they're just doing it. If it just it just
I
doesn't
don't
make sense
know.
for certain bands.
Prime example of all the
Exactly.
shit slinging going on about that stuff is like Motley Crue. All the stuff going on in that band.
Oh,
Yikes.
Oh, I saw something briefly. You guys should fill me in though.
Oh, so basically, after Mick Mars left or whatever, and John Five came in, I guess now Mick is all of a sudden like, oh well, they're trying to take like a percentage of his money away for one reason or another, and
Oh, so he was
basically
gonna like expose a bunch of shit about them, right?
Basically, yeah. And he was saying like Nikki Six doesn't play live. He like it's all backtracked and like Tommy Lee's kick drum and like this, that, and the other. And I was just like, my
And
God.
that's crazy because that the stuff they're playing is like straight up
Dude, it's
eighth
dad
notes.
rock.
Yeah.
Like, come on. That like it's not that difficult. Like, and I know Mick is like has his health issues, but like I believe he can still play it. It's odd. It's a really weird time,
yeah,
especially for those older bands where it's like they're legacy acts, and so it's just like, oh, they're
Yeah,
getting
they're trying
older.
to stay
How do they
relevant.
sound like kind of okay? Minus, Vince, but I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
oh,
Nope, no, I'm leaving that be.
No, that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you know the meme, yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, speaking of bands, speaking of bands, what are some of your musical influences that like really got you to start playing bass? Was it Nikki Six? It wasn't Nikki Six, right?
Nope.
No.
So growing up, probably from the time I was in like 5th grade, my favorite band was Tool, and they're very bass driven.
Bless. Bless.
What else? Mudvayne. Ryan
Oh, okay.
Martini, dude, he's like one of the fucking greatest bass players ever.
He's tremendous.
He was a massive inspiration for me. So like the slapping and the tapping, like right away I was learning all that stuff by ear within the first year.
They were
Like really
so
just trying to
good.
push the limits, you know?
Oh,
Those
dude.
guys were like underrated like earlier on, even though like it's awesome they're back and like people liked their like later stuff and they were more like radio rock friendly.
Yeah, it
But
got more
like,
like mainstream.
Oh,
oh
once
man,
they.
LD50
Oh yeah.
and album after
Yeah,
that.
that and the end of all things to come.
End of All
I'm
Things to
like,
Come.
I'll
Oh my
still listen
god,
to those like,
yeah,
holy fuck, these are
legendary.
sick.
Dude,
Even to this day.
when I learned and finally learned Death Blooms on bass,
Oh hell yeah.
on
Yep.
and I actually like had to get my it helped me get a lot of the finger motion because I was using a pick a lot too. You had to use your hand.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, because he uses every finger basically.
Yeah.
So then I mean, so I didn't really listen to much like metal and screaming at that point. Then, you know, like Lamb of God blew the fuck up. Everyone was into that. In high
Gateway
school, if you could
metalcore
play
band.
Lamb of God, you were considered like really good, you know?
Mhm.
So so I started learning a bunch of that stuff. It got me into the more like metalcore sound in general. I always learned everything by ear too, which is weird because there's probably some stuff that was wrong, but you know, it was close enough at the
You're
time.
like me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, I'm completely self-taught. Never took a lesson. I hate learning songs from other bands, so I stopped doing that like a decade ago. I mean, as far as like the Green Invaders musical influences, they've probably changed quite a bit over the years. Some that have stood the test of time would be Veil of Maya,
Mm.
the Acacia Strain, the Contortionist, Between the Buried and Me, a little bit of like Animals as Leaders, and I. It's interesting because now like we have a different lineup than we ever did before, and everyone has very eclectic music tastes. So whatever we start working on past the current project is probably going to be vastly different, which is cool. I'm down with that. I don't want to be the only one writing everything and having to handle everything, you know? So it's very nice to have like a full group of really talented people.
Yeah. That changes the room.
This might sound pretentious, but one of my biggest influences is myself. I probably spend more time listening to my own music than other music just because it's like a constant process.
I like that.
There's like weeks and months at a time where I'm writing every single day, every moment that I have free. And then, you know, I'll take a break for like a month or two, kind of not do anything musical. But it's always in like these big manic episodes where I've written entire albums in a week before.
Oh
And like
wow.
to this day, I've done nothing with them. They're just all sitting there.
My brother's like that as a musician. He's got like 400 unreleased songs.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's my passion, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
probably what gets me through most of the bullshit in life. Like it just all goes back into music, which is cool because there's lots of different stuff. Like, you know, the catalog is huge and it's not like it's all just breakdowns or metal.
Mhm.
I write a lot of orchestral stuff, and within the last year or two, I've been messing a lot with like synthwave type stuff,
Hell yeah.
just experimenting a lot.
Well, yeah, you should be your best fan, because it's your musical expression coming out. And as musicians, if you're a solo musician or you're with another group of people in a band, it's ultimately for you.
Well, right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
why I set out to start writing music in general, is because like I'd hear all this cool shit in my head, and I'm like, damn, I wish someone would do this. And then I started doing it.
Yep. You got the tools, you get the guitar in your hand, you set up the amp, and once you get the guitar in your hand, it's, you can't build a birdhouse without a hammer and a nail.
Exactly. So rather than like going out and drinking and partying in my 20s, I spent pretty much all my time on music.
Kept him off the streets.
Yeah,
Didn't
well,
keep
because I
me off
grew
the
up in New
streets.
Britain. It wasn't a great place.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't keep me off the streets, unfortunately, in that area. Uh, we got we were playing music and getting into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, there was a little bit of both. I grew
Yeah.
up in Wallingford.
Oh yeah. Wallingford, New Britain are very similar communities.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
say it's around the same vibration going on in
Hmm.
both those towns.
Even Bristol too. It's
Yeah,
pretty similar to New
Yeah.
Britain now.
yeah. Metis Remedy's main influence when we originally started the band was Burn the Priest.
Oh no
So
shit.
yeah,
That's
Oh
cool.
wow.
and when you listen to the 3-song demo that we did, the original one, we mastered it to a Burn the Priest record, like matched all the all the levels to make it sound like gritty,
Nice.
like
That's
that record.
awesome. Dude, that album was sick.
Ugh, yeah, Steve was really into them, and like his As the Palaces Burn had just kind of come out, and he was into Lamb of God. So we were playing Metis Remedy. I think started in like drop D.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is cool because I was already playing in drop D anyway.
Yeah, Maleficent
Just
went
rip.
down tuned a little bit.
Yeah, I was drop C, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah, not by much.
That was the era, though.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So I still technically play in drop C on an 8-string though.
Well, yeah, multi-scale for sure. You have a lot more freedom too.
Yeah.
With that
So
range.
everything's pretty much I write everything as if it's written on a 6 or a 7-string. The low 2 strings are kind of there to accentuate certain parts or feels,
Yeah,
rather than like having to compromise and pick the higher octave of a note. I have a lower register, so it's really cool. It's the tuning is DGCGCFAD.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's weird.
What gauge strings do you use?
I think my lowest is an 80.
Okay, that sounds about
My
right.
highest is a 10.
Yep.
So nothing special.
Gotcha. That's
But
pretty standard. I have like I have an 8-string pack in front of me. One of the 7410. Nah.
yeah, so I combined 2 different Ernie Ball packs to get the gauges I want.
Hmm.
There's like a gray one and an orange one, but they don't have the perfect combination, so I got to buy 2 packs and split them.
yeah.
If you haven't, you should try the Horizon Devices strings.
Oh, I've heard about those.
They're really awesome. I got a set for my Fender that I keep in drop C. It was like the Misha preferred one, and I'm not gonna lie, the tension's really nice.
Do they have an 8-string pack?
They have multiple 8-string packs.
Oh, sick.
So they have they have like a standard one that's like 74 to 10. Then they have like the Misha preferred one. I think that's like the 80 to something else. And then actually Dean Lamb from Archspire has a pack too.
Oh yeah, I just pulled up the website here. Yep, they got a 9 to 80 sold out. That's
Yeah,
funny.
that doesn't shock me.
No, that's good though. That means, they're doing well.
Dunlop makes them. They're really nice strings.
I got to change the strings on my 7.
Man, I used to like put that off as long as humanly possible, but now like constantly recording, I'm always changing my strings.
You have to when you're writing constantly, but I'm also like a surplus of like too many guitars right now. So certain ones more than others, I'll say, depending on what I need for when I need it.
Yeah. For the most part, I just use 2 Schecter 8-strings. They're both Hellraisers.
Nice. I like the Hellraisers.
One is a hybrid, but it has like Fishman Abasi pickups. I love that one. It's my like main guitar. It's really good for recording, and it's got the coil taps and shit, so you can get a bunch of different sounds out of it.
That's awesome.
They were always pretty guitars.
But it's a 28-inch scale length, so it's took a little bit to get used to. It's a long stretch. Feels like a bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely played a 30-inch scale baritone before, and that's a tough beast to play.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
My 7-string is a 28.
Yeah, no, 28, man. It's the move.
Yeah.
Especially because like our lowest string is a D. So the 26 and a half green Schecter I have, it would not hold that D very well.
No, you don't
Like
have the scale
for
length for
recording,
it.
you know. So the 28-inch was perfect.
Not without like a Evertune or something, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still unsure how I feel about Evertunes because I really like semitones and bending notes and shit. And I know you can, but
I will want
it just
to
feels like another thing I'd
experiment
break.
with one at some point because I want to actually I'm actually going into at some point I'm going to go to tech school so I can actually like fix stuff because I love doing that.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
but yeah, I would love just to learn how that whole process works. I know the routing job is insane.
Yeah, Canon has an Evertune on his Solar,
Mm-hmm.
so I've played it briefly.
How does
It's
he
pretty
like the
cool.
Solar?
Ah, man, I think he loves it.
Yeah,
John's is pretty.
Oh yeah,
they're
no, they both
awesome
have
looking
real sick
guitars,
guitars.
man. I love Ola.
I want to experiment with more guitar brands and models and stuff. It's something probably going to start investing in. What I really want is like a custom guitar that I built myself with
Mm,
all the specs and everything that I could ever dream of. You
yeah,
know?
that's the dream right there. I'll build myself one eventually.
Yeah.
So curious, do you have like any pre-show rituals, warm-ups, or anything that you or the guys do before playing a gig?
Um, nothing really. Just make sure we're not drunk.
That's a good thing.
I mean, funny story. One time we played a carpet store up in Vermont or New Hampshire.
The most New England thing ever. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it was a fucking carpet store. It was awesome.
So
But
it sounded dead in there, huh?
yeah, it was crazy. I was so baked before we played, I forgot the fucking set. Like I'm struggling to remember it on the spot, and I
Oh
wrote the
no.
shit. So from that point on, I decided not to smoke before I play, like ever again. Fuck
That's
that.
fair. And also, depends on the strain.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's too many variables at that point.
Yeah.
So I guess my pre-show ritual is to not smoke before I play.
You hear that, kids? Don't fuck up.
Don't fuck
Yeah,
up.
stay off the reefer,
Stay off the devil's lettuce. And don't be a drunk asshole on stage. That is never a good
Oh
look.
yeah, no.
No.
Nope.
No, please don't. It's not a good look.
There were a few bands that when we were young, I named one of them previous episodes ago.
That's not new information, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to name any more, but there were a couple bands where their certain members were absolutely loaded, and it wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good
Dude,
look.
I've seen Dragon Force drunk as shit, and they couldn't play any of their songs, yo.
That sucks. Oh,
When
that sucks.
I saw them at Ozfest, and they were actually really, really good.
That's awesome.
What year was that? 2000.
It was when Through the Fire and Flames was popular and came out. It was that
Oh, okay.
album.
So like 2005, 2006,
Yeah.
around then.
I think it was Ozfest 2006.
Yeah, it was awesome though because they actually had the acoustics up on stage, up on those stands, so they actually
that's
played
awesome.
the intro correctly. So it was rad.
That was at the Meadows.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
I
that
was
was
there.
when they had their original vocalist still. That was a great show.
Who headlined? Wasn't it like Black Sabbath?
2006, it might have been actually. I have a shirt somewhere.
Well,
from
one
that one.
year it was the year Ozzy didn't headline, and that was when System
System
of
of
a
a
Down
Down.
headlined.
That
Yeah.
might have been the one.
But I don't know if it was that one. But either way, those years for Ozfest were a great time.
Oh yeah.
I wish there were still like festivals like that. We played Warped Tour in 2013,
Hell yeah.
which that was eye-opening as fuck. That was our first time ever playing a big like event like that.
Such a production.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like you don't realize how much work goes into something like that until you're there at 7 a.m. watching them set up every stage.
Yep.
Yeah. That the production of that is just, it's always been fascinating. Even going, I always had an appreciation for it, of just being like, these guys pile this stuff in this parking lot, set up, and sometimes it's every day without a day off for a couple day stretches.
Dude, and then the hauls that they're doing between shows.
Yeah, it's wild. No, yeah, they're traveling quite far sometimes because they're basically like mobile buses.
Yeah. And then what was really shocking was the real weird community that happens in between the tour buses.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Like,
Oh,
yeah.
I've seen some shit, dude.
yeah, it's the craziest. I've had a couple experiences where I have a friend, we're trying to get him on. He does some production work and tour managing work for pretty large music groups for the past couple years, and does a lot of traveling, and has seen some crazy stuff. But he was working with a band on Warped Tour for a couple years, and as their TM, and like some of the stuff that you'd see, like they had this long flatbed that was just a grill,
Hmm.
and everybody that showed up just threw something on it, and there's just
Dude,
this
that's pro
giant
strat right there.
rager
That's
after,
awesome.
once the sun started going down. And
Oh, you're talking about the barbecue they do after.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Was
that's an awesome deal.
you got people like, 50 plus buses in all lined up in different corridors. It's like this weird camping yet shanty town
Yeah.
aspect, because you got people like working out, somebody skateboarding somewhere, and then one band like was like, "Yo, you want to see something cool?" and like open the hatch to their bus, and we're sitting on lawn chairs on the top of their bus. It's like just the weirdest stuff that goes on there. But then you see how much work goes into it with the band too, just how many people it takes to make just one of those festivals happen.
Oh
And
yeah.
the fact that
Massive
Warped Tour
amount of
did it for
people.
what, 37 dates, 40 something dates in
For
the summers.
years,
Yeah, for
Yeah, and they got like
years.
100
like
bands on the bill, you know?
decades.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, Kevin Lyman's a very, very awesome dude.
He's a beast.
It gave so many bands an opportunity to like be seen and blow up, you
Yep.
know? So many bands. It's pretty wild.
I never had a bad time at a Warped Tour.
Where else were you gonna see like early Katy Perry? You could go see on Warp Tour. That's
Oh,
so
yep.
weird to think about.
Other than the sun and the lack of water and shit, nah.
That is strange. No, I agree with you, Sean. The sun, especially it in Hartford,
Oh
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
was unbearable sometimes. I mean, I used to I used to tell certain people, I'd be like, dude, some of those like Ozfest and Warp Tour in
they're
at the
brutal.
Meadows, especially in like July or August or something like that, whenever it would land,
Yep.
uh you're literally, it sounds so gross, but you're just wiping your face on somebody else's back just to like use their sweat to cool yourself off.
Yeah. It's like you're paying to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah,
In
it's
some
pain.
ways, yes.
Yeah.
But it was so worth it every time. I never regretted actually going.
Oh
Hell no.
yeah. The
No
feeling when you
way.
get home afterwards and you can't move.
You can't hear shit.
Yep. Ears are ringing.
Exactly.
Actually, I want to ask, when you were in Vienna Mores, was Paul still in the band?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
dude, Paul. I've talked to him recently, and he's interested in coming on here, so we're gonna have Paul on. Paul
I love Paul.
was one of the
He's a great
best
dude.
guitar players, if like, I hate to say it, if not the best guitar player I've ever worked with, and was just disgusting at making mixes, because I was in When All Is Lost with him as well. And
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
yeah, but they had already written the songs, and we had three guitar players at the time, and nothing against the two other guitar players there in the band. They were just as gifted. It was me and my buddy Mike. They got it like a two for deal. They were looking for a vocalist, but they needed a bass player too. So
Yeah.
we jumped in. Paul's new YouTube channel. He's got a cool band. I would love to be in Connecticut to see his what's his band called?
Acid Wash.
Acid Wash. Yeah, they're like a
Hell yeah, dude.
cover bar band. They look really good.
I know they have a really sick aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And Vienna Morris was a great band. I saw you guys live a bunch of times.
Being in that band for the short amount of time that I was is like what set the standard going forward. Like I learned so much from them because they were super professional and super serious. You know,
Yeah,
like they were on a mission. To put it simply, they set the standard for what I wanted to like pursue.
it's so cool that like one or two dudes that we all know collectively could pave the way for a lot of different people without even trying. They were just doing their thing, their craft, and you absorbed it. And you're like, well, they're doing this right. They're doing that right. There's not much they're doing wrong.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it was pretty fast process. Like I went and jammed with them a couple times, and they were like, "All right, you're in," because I learned all the songs by ear and just showed up to practice like ready to go. But like I didn't drive at the time. I was 18. I couldn't play bars. There were a bunch of different factors.
Yeah.
I also wasn't like I didn't have that serious mindset yet. So when that didn't work, that's like what triggered like, okay, if I really want to do this for real, now I know what I need to do. But it's hard because unless you have the right members and everyone is on the same page and has the right mentality, it just, you know, doesn't happen the way you see it in your head.
Yeah, it's always going to be a battle if you have
Yep.
that one or two guys that just don't have the same drive that
So that was a big issue in the past. We always had like the solid core of the band, but certain people wouldn't really pull their weight or they wouldn't even show up. Uh I mean that all really changed around the time we had Freddie join. But then like our drummer, the Steve, I started the band with him. He ended up joining the Marines in 2018, and he was like the only drummer I played with for well over a decade. So that was pretty shocking, you know. So we took time off. We couldn't actually find a drummer who could play this stuff for a long amount of time, like a couple of years. We ended up hiring Evan Sammons from Maine. He was in a band called Last Chance to Reason.
okay.
He produces Kaonashi I don't know how to say their name. They're from Pennsylvania or some shit. They're like a hardcore band. No, so we hired him to do the drums for the project we've been working on. He fucking killed it. He's like one of my favorite drummers. Last Chance of Reason is one of my favorite bands, so it was an honor working with him.
That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it was really fulfilling. And it also like it allowed me to really push the limits with the music itself,
Yeah.
Cuz like now we have this insanely professional talented drummer who's going to be able to tackle whatever I throw at him. So that's exactly what I did.
We had a vocalist in Forsaken that was in some larger bands. Uh
Lou,
yeah. And that was cool. It was cool to have him. I actually got a hold of him recently.
Conducting from the Grave was one of my biggest
Oh,
influences
such a
back
good
when I
band.
started Green
Yeah.
Invaders.
And he filled in for lots of bands too. He did some work with Through the Eyes of the Dead for briefly. I think he did
Yep.
like a tour or so. Uh and then Invocation of the Heck. I don't know if he did. I think he did a couple shows. He's got a new band.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, and they're actually releasing music. They're called
Altars of Iran or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I know what band you're talking about.
yep. Dudes from was it Shadow of Intent and
Yeah, Lou Tannis,
yep,
BJ Sampson, Matthew Kowanowski, and Hunter Spader.
yeah. They got some singles out. Uh, they're very good.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's. I think he. Hopefully, we can get a chance to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, it'd be cool to chat with him.
Yeah. Before we let you go, man, I know you can't really talk about that release that you guys got going on, but do you guys have any shows coming up?
Currently we have one show booked at the Beerix in West Haven, Connecticut, I think. July 30th. We're being very strategic about the shows we play right now because we're still like in the process of getting back into being active full time, and
Yeah,
it's with a new lineup, and there's a bunch of different variables. It's all new music, so we're not trying to play every show that's thrown at us. We probably actually turned down 9 out of 10.
Fair.
But also, that like if you're playing every week, then people can just catch you next time.
Yeah.
So you got to create some sort of demand,
yeah.
and it's hard without like recent music released yet.
We'll post that once we drop this episode. Let everybody know where they can find your guys' music, social medias, stuff like that?
So we have a Facebook and Instagram. I mean, our first album is up on everything, Spotify, iTunes. We released one single last year only on YouTube because we wanted it to be very like low key, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that song. It's called Change the Future. It's on YouTube. It is it's a nice little taste of what's coming soon.
Very cool.
Other than that, I mean, we're definitely releasing music this year. We just haven't established a date because there's still a couple variables that we need to handle.
Understandable.
But it's coming.
We're excited.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, can't wait to hear it.
I can't wait for people to hear it. It's been a lot of work and blood, sweat, and tears.
You guys should put blood, sweat, and tears into like a vinyl pressing. Make it real metal.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just do a couple 7 inches like that. The blood of Sean.
Find someone who has tetanus in their blood.
Oh man, it's been really cool having you on. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, dude, it was great chatting with you, man. Like, honestly, super stoked to hear what you got going on.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to finally be out and be able to talk about it freely. It'll be nice.
Can't wait to hear about it. Check out the Green Invaders at their SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/thegreeninvaders-CT. You can also listen to them on Spotify, follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram at Tales from the Soundcheck Podcast and listen on Spotify, where you can follow and rate the show.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for full episodes and exclusive clips.
If you have any comments or want to chat with us on the show or have your band featured, please DM us or email us at talesfromthesoundcheckpodcast@gmail.com.
And before we let you go, as always, we want you to listen to a little music. Check out Change the Future, a 2022 single from the Green Invaders.